Hey everybody, this is Phoebe from Love Relationships Real Talk. Today's subject is how to build a win-win relationship. So my first question is, why would you want a win-lose relationship? Because you know that's the alternative, right? If you're not creating a win-win relationship with your love, then you're creating a win-lose relationship. So you don't want your partner ever feeling like a loser because they're with you. You want them to feel like a winner. And there are certain times through our relationship that we have disagreements or there are decisions to be made, and there are certain personalities that come together for particular reasons. I talked before in another video about the law of attraction. And so like energies sometimes attract one another. So in this case, you'd have like say two really strong personalities that might create this dynamic of a win-lose relationship, because with two really strong personalities, then you're always trying to find a way to get a leg up on someone who has a more dominant personality. And so they create this dynamic that really does look like a win-lose type of relationship. And then you have relationships that are built on two opposites attracting type of situation, where you have a dominant personality and then you have a more submissive or a weaker personality. And when those two people come together, most likely, if the dominant person is not keenly aware of their way of being and how they're interacting with their partner ends up being the loser in a lot of situations. Because for the more dominant partner, it's more important to win. So opposed to the person who's less dominant or weaker, it may not be less important that they win, but that they don't have it within them to put up the fight, or they don't have it within their confidence level to meet their more dominant partner at the level that they are at. So you have these types of relationships, and either way, I believe that you can build a win-win dynamic between you and your love, for the very reason that they are who they are. They're the person that you love. And you don't want them feeling inside of your space with each other that they're a loser. So let's do whatever we can to make sure that they're not that they are a winner. That even if it's not something that they go for, it's something that they obtain by being with you. So depending on the type of dynamic you have in your relationship, you have to find a balance for how to create this relationship that's a win-win for both partners. When you have a win-win relationship, both partners want to be there. They want to be in the relationship. Don't you want your wife, your partner, female partner, to walk around feeling beautiful and prized and adored and revered in your eyes? Don't you want your husband or your male partner to walk around feeling like he has his chest pushed out and his shoulders squared, and he just feels confident and alive in the union that you've combined and created together? Don't you want your partner feeling that way? And I mentioned earlier in another video that you're not responsible for your partner's happiness, but what you are responsible for is your behavior and how it relates to or impacts your partner's sense of being. When you're with someone all the time and the relationship has tension, or you feel like you're being beat down, like not beat down. Some people do feel beat down, but you're feeling like you're not being treated with the utmost respect and love. When you're dealing with that day in and day out all the time, you're going to start noticing things in your partner that you're not going to be complaining about because you don't like it. But what you're not really realizing is that maybe you're contributing to your partner being a certain way that doesn't really work for the family or your relationship because of the way you are together. And so recognizing it is the first step. And then I'm going to give you some tips or some insights as to some things that I've done that have helped to rebuild your relationship so that you do feel like your partner feels like you're in a win-win relationship. So to me, I think that this kind of really shows up big time in two different scenarios. One is when a decision needs to be made and there's one person in the relationship, probably the more dominant personality, that feels like everything has to go their way. Like they have the best idea every time. And the other person never gets to feel like their contribution has equal weight or that it matters. And then another situation where this dynamic can really be built up is when you're having an argument. And I'm sure that many of you heard about tips and ways to fight fair. And one of the main things that comes out of that type of advice is this idea that people fight to be right. And when you fight to be right, there is definitely always a loser in that argument. So you can have arguments, you can have disagreements. You're going to. They're actually very good. Disagreements are a very good thing for couples to deal with because it takes you through, things that you don't agree on. And it takes you from that point to a point where you actually are agreeing or you're able to come to a compromise. That's fabulous for relationships to have that dynamic. And so a lot of times I think what a lot of people do is they try to avoid having arguments or fights. And if it's happening all the time, then it's like there's something else going on. But when it comes up every now and then, you have an argument or a disagreement or a fight, those are very healthy things to go through in your relationship, and it actually helps the relationship to grow and become deeper and for the couple to become closer with one another once they get to the other side of the argument. But 9 times out of 10, I bet you, not even 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, you only get the benefit of having had the argument or the disagreement when both people feel like they've won in those arguments or those disagreements. Both people have to feel like they've come to a place of compromise or where they feel like they have been honored, their comments or their opinions have been respected inside of that argument. That's the only time you get to the other side of that argument together, and then you feel like you've become closer as a unit, having had that disagreement. So whenever you're arguing, check in. That's what I mean when I say, take a deep breath, take a step back, check in, ask yourself, am I fighting to be right now? And guess what? You might be right. I always feel like I'm right. But the point is that you want to leave that argument with both of you feeling like you got what you needed out of the conversation. If you leave the argument feeling like, see, I told you I was right, then your partner is sitting over there feeling defeated. And that's not what you want your partner to be walking around with. And it's kind of like this example that I give the kids at school when we talk about friendships and building trust and different things that come with relationships. And it's Brene Brown talked about this in her TED Talk, and she talks about how what we do with each other is that we put marbles in a marble jar inside of the classroom. When the classroom has a marble jar, teachers put the marbles inside the marble jar when the class has done something well or good. And when they haven't, then they take marbles out of the marble jar. So she used that scenario, that scenario as an example for, how we actually build trust and love and companionship in relationships. It's like putting marbles in the marble jar. So when you are having conversations that respect your partner, that allow them to be heard, that allow their point of view to be respected, when you have conversations like that, you're putting marbles in your relationship jar. And just from the contrary perspective, when you take over in the conversation, when you fight to be right at all costs, when you degrade or demean your partner with your language or comments, things that you know that aren't right to say, but you do because when you're in the heat of it, you just want to, go for the jugular and whatever happens. But when you do that, you're taking marbles out of your relationship jar. Why do you want an empty marble jar? So whenever you have a disagreement, if you could have this visual in your head about your relationship being a marble jar, you want as many marbles in that jar as possible. And trust me, every time your partner goes away feeling like she won another one, he dominated me, he always is right, I'm always wrong. If you have your partner going feeling like that, they might stay with you, but they're taking marbles out of that jar every time. They're taking marbles out of that jar. So, and it shows up, right? It shows up in other parts of the relationship. And so as I'm thinking about this visual, for me and Mark, over the years, we've had arguments and disagreements, and we both have very strong personalities. And I definitely would fight to be right. And one of the things that I had to learn how to do is to stop talking and listen. Listen to what he's telling me. Listen to his point of view. It's valid. Just as I feel mine is valid, his is valid too. So I stopped and I listened to what it is that he's trying to tell me. And another thing that I've done is to allow for time and space when I'm thinking about what I want to say in response to the disagreement. About certain situations where when I was dealing the matchmaking, and I was working with clients and they were in relationship, and I was still doing some coaching and relationship coaching. And I started to notice some body language or behaviors in people that feel defeated in their relationships. And so I want to point out to you 3 things that I noticed with people who feel defeated. You can tell, even if they don't say it, but they do stuff. So one thing is that they avoid conflict no matter what. So as soon as they see, living with a person, you start to pick up patterns and, ways of being that people are having, things are getting ready to build up and maybe move into this uncomfortable zone, and you start having arguments, right? So you notice that. And so what your partner might start doing when these events happen, or when you get into an argument, what you might notice in your partner is that they're trying to avoid being with you, right? They're trying to avoid the conflict. They're trying to avoid this argument. Why? Because they know they're not going to be heard, and they know they're going to lose. So they don't want to even be in your space. They try to avoid you. They try to avoid the conflict. One way to avoid conflict is also by lying. So You know, a lot of times people get really upset with a partner who has lied to them for some reason. And you really want to start looking at, why is your partner feeling the need to lie to you? Why do they feel like they can't tell you their truth or the truth and about things? And so that happens because they know what they're going to get back. And so they try to avoid that from happening. And so they lie, right? We have to acknowledge that. Are we creating that environment with our partner? You have to ask yourself those hard questions. Another thing that I've noticed is, of course, people shut down. They don't talk. When you're having an argument, if you notice that your partner is just, it's like, you're not even saying anything. You're not even talking to me. Like, and on and on and on. And you keep saying that and you keep talking. You're not really giving them the space to do that. And so one thing that you can do in those situations is you stop talking and just let there be silence if there's going to be silence. And once you start doing this, like a situation that I remember, they were trying to work with this tool of not talking anymore and letting there be silence. And then what the other person would start doing is trying to go into that first thing that I talked about, which is the avoidance. They try to leave the situation. It's like, are you done? And one response that I have to that is for you to say, yes, I'm done. And then all you're doing is giving space, right? So you say, yes, I'm done. And we need to have a resolution to this conversation or this issue. And I'm giving you the space to do what you need to do. But I need to know that we're going to be able to come back and have a conversation about the situation. So that's what I've noticed helps for people who shut down in arguments or uncomfortable conversations, to give them the space and let them, but also you have to let your needs be known, that you need to come back and continue the conversation when we're able to do so. And then another thing that I've noticed about people who are avoiding or who feel defeated inside of a relationship is that their willingness to do things with their partner. So if you find that your partner is doing a lot of things separate from you, they don't want to spend their downtime with you, they are avoiding, spending intimate time with you, or whatever the case might be, just whatever you would notice around your partner not feeling like they want to be around you, then their level of willingness has declined, and you have to ask yourself why. One of the things that I've noticed when you do realize that maybe you are living with a defeated partner because of your behaviors is that people want to fix it immediately, right? They feel guilty, they feel bad, they feel like, they feel like they're freaking out because it's like, I didn't want that, but I want to fix it, right? You can't just fix it. Don't try to just fix it. You just gradually start rebuilding this relationship in a positive intention manner, where you have it within your paradigm that you've had a shift to say, I want a win-win relationship. So every incident that happens, I'm going to start taking positive steps toward creating a win-win relationship. So you just shift it in your thinking. You don't have to have a conversation about it, because when you do that, you're really just doing it because you want to fix it. You want this to be like not this way anymore. And so that's not going to happen. And you have to realize that, you've been taking marbles out of your jar. And so there's not a lot of trust there with your partner. And really that's an accurate assessment for them, because you're doing that because it's for you. You want to feel better. You want your relationship to be more healthier. And it not to be because you weren't doing what you needed to do in order for it to be that in the first place. You want that for yourself. not so much you wanting your partner to have this feeling of pride and love and adoration in your presence. So give them the time that they need to start healing and to start putting those marbles back in your relationship jar. I just wanted to recap what we've talked about here today, just to put it in a summarized format for you. So tips for rebuilding to have a win-win relationship. 1, listen better. Stop talking. Let silence do what silence does. Open the space for your partner to walk in. And don't let your voice be this grating fingernails on the chalkboard type situation for your partner. Okay, so listen to what they're telling you, listen to what they're saying. But most importantly, inside of that listening is you're not talking. 2, pay attention to your partner's body language. I remember I mentioned earlier that there are specific ways of being that a defeated partner exhibits their body language. It's not shoulders up and chest out. It's not that. So you'll notice when those things are occurring, or you'll notice that in your partner. So you need to do a little observing. And when you do that observation, taking those baby steps to change your paradigm on what kind of relationship you want. Not a win-lose, but a win-win. The 3rd tip that I have for you is to repeat what you're hearing from your partner. So that's a common strategy for people who are listening. It's a common strategy to let their partner know that what they're saying is being heard. Or if it's not being heard correctly, then they can correct it. This is especially important for relationships that do have that opposites attract dynamic, where you have a more dominant partner with a less dominant partner, because then it gives the dominant partner the opportunity to really listen to what their partner is saying, and it gives the lesser dominant partner the realization that their partner is listening to them and that they're being heard, and they really need that. So repeat what you're hearing your partner say. Do that exercise, even if it feels, fake or weird to do it. Absolutely, it's a great tool to let your partner know that they're being heard. Because a lot of times when you're having disagreements, that's really all you want. Like, they don't even have a solution. They don't even have a want or a need. They just really want to be heard by you. And they want to be able to have the freedom to say whatever it is it's in them to say, and to be able to trust that they can say it in your presence. Number 4, always look for the compromise. Always look for the compromise. Are you in a relationship where everything has to go your way? If it's going your way all the time, and it's not going their way ever, it's not a relationship one of those people are enjoying being in. So if you are a dominant personality and things always have to go based on your decision making, you really have to think about how that shows up for your partner. How do they feel inside of your relationship? Have they conceded to everything that is related to decision making? And then what are you saying? I have to do everything. I have to make all the decisions, right? You need to step up. And I'm saying, and it's coming out like that because it's coming from a woman, but because I know a lot of women who do feel that way and say that. But I know a lot of men who feel the same way, that they're doing everything in the relationship, in the family, in terms of the decision making. So look for that compromise. Be a fully functioning partner in your relationship, fully functioning, and don't give up. Don't give up on your partner. Don't give up on your relationship by conceding everything because it's easier or because you become lazy or whatever the case might be. Number 5, ask what your love needs. So when they are talking, when they're sharing their point of view, when they're frustrated with you about something, just ask that question. So what do you need? What can I do to help you get what you need? And then do everything in your power to make that happen. Do everything in your power to acknowledge that they've shared that with you and that you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that's delivered if you can. If you can't, then you need to share that that's not something I can do. Don't say that you can just because you think you're supposed to be saying that you can. Say whatever it is you feel like you can authentically do. Because if you say something you can do something and you don't, then you're taking marbles out the jar, because now they can't count on you. Now you're not dependable. Now you're not reliable. You let me down. So don't say anything that you can't do, but listen to what their needs are and try to find a compromise for how you can achieve what both parties need. And then the sixth and the last thing, tip that I have for you in rebuilding your relationship so that it's win-win, is to never intend to hurt or disregard your partner and their feelings. Never intend to do that. And this is, I know this is an extreme, right? It's an extreme in terms of a spectrum of how this happens. There's like an intentional, like I'm going to hurt them. They pissed me off and I don't like it and I'm going to let them know. And then there's, more subtle, where you fight to be right. And you feel strongly in what you're feeling and you don't intend to make them feel bad, but you feel strongly in your point of view and you want them to see your point of view. And you want them to agree, not just see it, but you want them to agree. And so I know that type of situation comes up too. So there's a spectrum in which that sort of thing happens. But if you are going to shift your thinking from win-lose to win-win, you must deal with your intention when you're dealing with your partner. My intention is that my partner goes away feeling respected and loved, having been with me in this conversation, not dejected, defeated, and unheard. You have to set your intention so that your partner doesn't feel hurt or disregarded after having been with you in any conversation or discussion. So that's what I have on rebuilding your relationship, so that it's a win-win. And we've all made mistakes and we've all been in that place where, it might look like a win-lose, but there's always opportunity, and it's never too late to create what you want in your love relationships. So I'll see you next time on Love Relationships Real Talk. Don't forget to like my videos, comment in the comment section, and even better, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Love Relationships Real Talk with Phoebe Smith.